Hello, welcome to the second video of the 3 videos for note-taking. This one will be a quick video, just up to a little step further or into note-taking than the basics, which is what we talked about in the first video. This video is getting a little bit more detailed about what we take note of, when we take note, how do we know what we're taking notes of, what's most important. And for this video, you will need to have your notes ready and something to take note with your materials, but also included you'll need a highlighter or some colored pencils or colored pens, and that's for an activity that comes at the end, and a piece of paper for the reflection, which is how we're going to start this lecture. Okay, so let me just put this on the present page here. Okay, so for this video, or for us to begin, please pull out a piece of paper and answer the following questions. Now, I asked you in the last video a similar question to the one here. When did you first learn how to take notes? If you've already answered that in the first video, don't worry about it. If you zoomed through the first part of that video and didn't do the quick write, you now have a second opportunity to do it, okay? I would really like you to look back on your on when you learned how to take notes and how that came about, okay? So the next few questions are asking you specifically, how do you, like when you're in a lecture or you're watching this lecture video, how do you know what is most important to write down on your page? How do you organize that information? And what are you noting? Are you noting yourself as you take notes, or are you noting only the information that's coming in from the instructor? Please pause this video for about 5 minutes. You can set a timer to answer these questions and then return when you're done. So I hope you paused the video. We're back now to take a look at, when we take note. What are some of the cues for us to know that this is time for me to take note now? I'm going to write this down on my page. There's your instructor. Okay, it looks very different than me, but we will say that that's your instructor. What you want to observe when you're taking notes to know that these are important cues that I should be writing this on my page is when your instructor looks at his or her or their notes. If they pause to look at their notes, whatever they're about to say is very important. If they slow down and enunciate anything, if they are talking louder, if they're emphasizing information, if they've repeated something several times, we know that's time to take notes. If an instructor spends a great deal of time on one subject or one topic, or if they're excited or passionate or interested in the material, that is a time to take note. And I gave the example of my Vietnam War history instructor when I was a college student. There were many different battles, many different dates, many different politicians for us to remember, since there were so many countries that were involved in that war. But when she would get really involved and really passionate about a specific battle or communication between certain political leaders, and she would spend a lot of time trying to get us to understand what led up to this battle, that was one that I was going to make sure I had plenty of notes on, that I was going to go back in my textbook and reread and look over to know everything about it. And the last thing is your instructor might just say to you, this is important, this will be on the test. And then, of course, you're going to want to take note of that. And then here's a little funny meme. That's kind of how we take notes now, huh? It doesn't have the same effect as handwriting or taking notes ourselves. Taking pictures. This is a meme of students taking notes with their phones, taking pictures with their phones and tablets and things. But when we talk about memory, we may touch on this as well, but writing things down helps us to remember better. So it's important to revise and review and go over our notes plenty of times. So what are we noting? What are we taking note of? And very simply put, we are looking at the topic of the lecture, which we're looking for the purpose of what we're learning. Here's this topic on note-taking. What's the purpose of me learning about note-taking? And then if I answer that and I'm looking for those details, I'm going to break that lecture down into the main ideas or the main concepts that I learned about note-taking. And within those main ideas or those main concepts, I'm going to look for examples or details, explanations that are going to help me to understand those main concepts better or more clearly. This is part of selecting main ideas, okay? Now, whenever anything is written on the board, if your instructor uses PowerPoints or graphs or anything visual, you will definitely want to take note of that or ask the instructor to post it in a public space for all the students to see it if they'll allow it. Now, when we get to, we're going to talk about now how to take notes, and this is really important when we're trying to write really fast. We want to use keywords and abbreviations. It's really important to get all of the technical terms, all of the dates down, all of the facts down. But we can use abbreviations to help us write all that stuff down faster. We can also use action words. We can use symbols that will allow us to see the relationship between terminology or between ideas or concepts. Keywords, things like most, least, faster, you can't abbreviate those or you can't leave them out because they're very important for showing the degree or importance of something. They also show comparison. So we do want those words to be included in our note-taking. And then also making sure that if it's going to help us to remember the lesson better or to remember a specific key concept, then we might want to jot down an image or I know in my horticulture class we were drawing leaves or plants to understand the different parts of a plant. A student of mine in one of my classes explained that he was learning about I want to say something that had to do with sponges. I was in science class, and what he said was he drew SpongeBob off to the side so that he would remember the lesson better. It would help him to digest the info better. And so that's a little bit of doodling, but it's also putting an image down for association, for memory later. We also want to, as we're, if the instructor is speaking really fast, we want to leave out anything that we don't need to understand the meaning of what we're writing. So a, and the is usually unimportant, and replacing any words with symbols like and can be replaced with a symbol. At can be replaced with a symbol as well. Sometimes we can leave out vowels. So if you've ever been a waitress or a waiter, I guess they're now server is the better term to use. When you're taking down orders, there are abbreviations for all the foods, and each restaurant has kind of their own language for those abbreviations. You can see on the slide, text might be TXT. I know that when I was a server, cheese was CHS one of the rest. That's what I can remember from one of the restaurants. So we can write these down in order to help us move faster. What we don't want to do is use abbreviations for something that could mean anything, like COM, the abbreviation for, what's that abbreviation for? Think of all the words that COM could stand for. Community, communication, there are so many, commitment. So we want to be aware that some words can't be abbreviated or else we're not going to understand them later. We don't want to get home from a lecture and be curious about why we were writing what we were writing. This is the end of the lecture. I'm sorry. This is the last activity, or the last thing that I want to go through. And what I'm going to ask you to do is to take out your notes now, or the notes that you've been writing on. Take out your highlighter and your colored pens. And first, you're going to go through your notes, and you're just going to review your notes. By first underlining what the topic is for today's lecture, and then put asterisks or stars next to the main ideas or the main points that were covered in today's lecture. And then you're going to take your highlighter or your colored pens and highlight or underline, put colors around or next to any of the supporting details, any of the examples or explanations of the main points. And then at the very end, you're going to form a study question, a question that could be on the test based on today's lecture. And you'll write that in the margin of your notes. I hope this was very helpful for you. And if you have any questions, again, you can email me. I will see you for the third and final video of the note-taking lecture. Bye-bye.